Definitive Edition. What should have been the glorious immortalization of three super iconic, absolute landmark video games ends up kind of being a giant slap to the face to gamers and fans who supported and loved the series throughout the years. But that doesn't mean it isn't fun though. Welcome to completion number 47, 48, and 49 of the Potato Backlog project. For more info on the project, see the links below. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video for the rock star of all rating systems, the Tater Raider, and let's have a look at Grand Theft Auto, the Trilogy Definitive Edition. Before I even say anything, these are my thoughts and experiences with the game at the end of 2023. This trilogy has already been out for 2 years and patched a few times since launch from what I can tell. From what I've read, this game was kind of an unplayable and buggy mess at launch. I remember reading a lot of negative things about the games around this time, and everybody seemed really upset with what they had released. Fast forward 2 years later, and my experience with all three can be summed up pretty easily. These felt like the games I played 20 years ago. The core experience of playing these games is preserved in my eyes. No more, no less. People have memories locked in of what these games are and were, and it's always hard to top stuff like that, especially for the people that played them at a young age. These look better, run better, and play better than the originals. Now that doesn't mean I'm happy with what we got here, and it's obviously not hard for something to look better today than something that was released 20 years ago, but this is essentially what those games were, for better or worse, and I had a ton of fun playing them. I had finished GTA 3 and Vice City back in the day, but I never did complete San Andreas. I never knew how that story ended, so it was pretty cool to go back and play through all three in sequence, seeing the additions and the gameplay developments that were made from GTA to Vice City, and then seeing them take everything they learned from the first two and push it to an insane level with San Andreas. Having that chance 20 years later to go through them on a modern console, that's awesome. These were groundbreaking experiences at the time. No other games offered the same type of freedom and storytelling within their world. They kind of created this sandbox open world genre and pushed the envelope of what was possible with each subsequent release. It's hard to explain the experience of playing industry-changing games like this 20 years later. When you're in the middle of it as a gamer, you know it's special because you've never really played anything like it before, and that feels like a rare thing these days. To try and create a remake or remastered version of that feels impossible to me because you just can't replicate that situation, that feeling, or what the world was like at that time. So the only way these remakes would have even remotely had a chance to be loved would have been if they were just rebuilt from the ground up. Keep the story, the main bones, but rebuild everything else and add more. Bring them up to par with something that would release today. And unfortunately, that's just something that Rockstar wasn't willing to do. The insulting part for gamers, I think, comes from a few places. The unpolished state of the game at release, a continued practice from AAA studios, even though Rockstar sourced this out to a third-party studio, it has their name on it, so they are to blame for the quality at release. They also asked full price, which only adds fuel to the fire. People had a hard time seeing it as more than a cash grab with minimal effort put in, and there were just a ton of unmanaged expectations. Gamers wanted these games to look modern, to look like something from the 2020s. I think the common thought was, if you are going to spend any resources at all trying to preserve these experiences, why not just go all out? These are the games that put Rockstar on the map. Why not treat them with the respect they deserve? And instead, they just managed to piss off multiple generations of gamers. There would be the gamers who had never had a chance to play them. They grew up on GTA 4 or GTA 5. They experienced Red Dead Redemption 2. They already grew up with the games that stood on the shoulders of what this trilogy created. Masterpiece games in their own right, don't get me wrong, but there would be that built-in expectation there for the gamer that only knew those games. To not offer something incredibly polished and visually on par or better than what they've already seen skews the initial opinion in a negative way, right off the bat. Even if the games had been released without major bugs, they pretty much already lost that generation of gamer. To put this into perspective, my nephew is turning 18. GTA 5 released when he was 10. That was his first Grand Theft Auto. You could give this generation the original versions of these games on a PlayStation 2 and they would laugh at that experience. Grand Theft Auto 3 is a pretty simple, straightforward game by today's standards. This gen probably got bored of it in an hour or two, assumed Vice City and San Andreas are more of the same and just stopped playing it. This is of course an over-exaggerated assumption by me, but looking at the trophy achievement percentages for some of the early game stuff, I might not be that far off. You then have the generation that grew up playing those originals 20 years ago. Those memories, the feelings of what those games games are and were, it can never be replicated. To be fair to this group, knowing it wasn't a full-blown rebuild of the old game, they probably would have been okay with the visuals and the feel of the game if the price had been a little bit lower at launch and there was some polish there as well. Because that's me, I'm in that category. So it feels like the entire situation was lose-lose from the start, the unpolished state at launch, mixed with the outsourcing of the remake to a third party, and a set of games that, while at the time were industry-changing experiences, didn't age all that well. I guess it's good there was a massive uproar about it all at launch. It let Rockstar know that people weren't happy with what they gave them. But in the grand scheme of things, it mattered very little for the company. I read that GTA 5 lifetime revenue is something like $8.5 billion. With the popularity of the first GTA 6 trailer, there's no reason to think that Grand Theft Auto 6 won't do even better for them. I do feel like I was the target demographic for these remakes. I had a lot of fun with them. Grand Theft Auto 3 didn't age super great. Vice City started them down the road of great storytelling, world building, and character development, and San Andreas was just the peak of everything that they were doing at the time. If you got this trilogy on sale, San Andreas alone is worth the playthrough. This kind of turned into a little bit more of a rant than my normal videos, and that's okay. These are the types of games that people have really strong opinions on, and some people have a really hard time being honest about what the games are today because of what those old memories of the experience mean to them. But in the end, nothing changes how great these games were. Nothing can change what they did for gaming. And even this definitive edition of the trilogy can't take away or change the experience you remember having with the originals. 3 happy potato faces out of 5 for the trilogy. These games all work. Maybe they didn't at launch, but they do now. And this is what the games were 20 years ago. A little bit better. This is the experience. This is what they are. Individual ratings: 1 happy potato face for GTA 3. 3 happy potato faces for Vice City, and 4 happy potato faces for San Andreas. That game's something else, man. It's so good. I do think game preservation is really important, but I also think it's the responsibility of the developer to temper gamers' expectations about what they're doing. Rockstar already made their money off these games and built their empire. If this was as far as they were willing to go with the remakes, they should have just made sure they were polished up at launch, charged $20, and then moved on. But with that, the Backlog project rolls on. Thank you so much for watching. Completion number 50 is next. Be kind to yourselves and others that deserve it. We're on to the next one.